Hey, this is Jeremy with Mold Doctors USA. So I wanted to talk with you a little bit about mold inspections and testing. So we get asked the question a lot, do you offer sampling or testing? And the answer to that always is no, we do not offer any sampling or testing, and I'll tell you why. So in many states, there are rules and regulations and guidelines that police the individuals that do remediation work. So in order to keep everyone honest and fair, they prevent remediation companies from doing any testing. So there are a few different types of testing methods that can be used to find mold in your home. There's a lot of home test kits you can purchase online, you can purchase at home improvement stores. Now the problem with doing your own mold tests would be that there's no real baseline for any of those samples. So one of the methods, an old method, that's still used by some, is a Petri dish. Now a Petri dish really is no different than leaving a glass of iced tea out on the nightstand for a few days. So if you leave it there long enough, it's going to culture something, even if it was in the most sterile environment such as a hospital surgical room. So there's not many people that want to use a Petri dish. Now some of the other samples you can purchase that may contain swabs are good ways to test for mold. However, there's no baseline. So if you're ordering a swab online from a lab or you're having a swab test taken, there's no real way to gauge what the issue or problem is. So if you're using a home test kit with a swab and you're testing a surface, it may just be a plain old house dust with a little bit of mold. Now, you may not actually have a mold issue, so don't panic if you order one of those home test kits and use it for mold testing. If you swab a surface that's dusty and dirty, that dust and dirt is going to contain small mold spores, so it doesn't necessarily indicate that you have an issue. So moving on, there are a few other samples that can be taken, a tape lift, or the most common is an air sample. Now, the great thing about air samples is that we'll tell you about any fibers that are in the air. If it's insulation, dust, rust, mold, powder, whatever it is, it'll tell you what particle is floating around in the air. So it's a great way to identify a lot of different molds that are common in homes. So, or even commercial environments. The problem, even with air samples though, is that it still doesn't give you a baseline. Coming in and taking a single sample indoors is a great way to find out if there's mold present at that time. Now, what if something has changed in the environment in the day prior or 2 days before that sample was taken? You only have results from that one sample, so you still can't really gauge if you have a mold problem. The best way to take a sample, although it could get expensive, is to have someone that takes samples day after day for 2 to 3 days when the environment changes. So if it's hot, if it's humid, if it's cloudy, if it's rainy, you can't take a comparison sample on a rainy day because you're not going to get an accurate reading. But if you take a post-contamination or a pre-test with a control sample outside, it's good to have 1 or 2 or 3 days of testing inside so you get a good picture of what's really going on. Indoor environmental professional or someone that specializes in testing and someone that understands how to write protocol once they've finished that test.